Welcome back to Good Girls Gotta Heal, the podcast where we learn to release the weight of childhood trauma and step into our most authentic selves. It's time to ditch that good girl mask and embrace a life of ease, compassion, and genuine connection. Join me, Megan Walsh, holistic trauma therapist, and let's embark on a journey of healing and self-discovery together. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Good Girls Gotta Heal. This week we are back at it with a question and answer episode. So you guys submit questions to me every Sunday, and we're going to take them and answer them for you here this week. And I think the questions that I got this week, so many of you are going to relate to, so I can't wait to dive in. But before I do that, I just want to talk for a second about last week's episode about CPTSD and emotional flashbacks. I got a lot of great feedback from many of you who felt really seen and validated around what it means to actually put a name to what happens to you, right? Those moments where you get overwhelmed with those emotions that are so familiar as if they were happening when you were a kid. And when they come back in the present day, it's really hard to deal with. And I have heard from quite a few people that it's really helped to separate what happens from you, right? From inherently you and who you are, that you're not doing anything bad or wrong or not good enough, but actually this is a reaction that is this, right? This is a trauma response that is happening. This is a trauma response that is happening in the here and now moment. And why I name this is because I'm so glad that normalizing this, putting a framework and a name to it, has helped to increase self-compassion. Because truly, the more that we can really internalize a sense of self-compassion, the better. And I say the better because when we have self-compassion, we are treating ourselves kindly. We are overriding the inner critic who is telling us all of these false stories about who we are. And when we feel self-compassion, we feel more at ease. Our nervous system is more grounded and we are feeling more calm and connected. And that is exactly the goal of our healing work. So thank you all for tuning in and for such great feedback. And if there are any topics that you really want to hear about on the podcast, any experts you want me to bring in, feel free to share that with me through a message or in the call for questions next week. Would love to hear what you would like to hear about. So here we go. We're going to dive into this week's question. The first one, why do I go straight to a what did I do or thinking that I am bad when someone else is in a mood? I really just want everyone to be okay. How does my trauma make it feel like everything is my fault? Oof, great question. As I envision the feeling of, right, stepping into a room where someone's in a mood and you begin to feel so stressed. So, right, your nervous system goes on to high alert, right? That fight or flight, oh no, how do I fix this? How do I make it better? It's such a hard feeling to be in. It makes it really hard to be present, really hard to be your authentic self, really hard to just take in the moment or find joy when we are so hypervigilant. And when we step into hypervigilance, we feel this need to control the environment around us in order to feel safe. And your trauma makes your nervous system so sensitive, right? Super sensitive. Our little neuroreceptors are looking for a potential threat because we've been used to it because it happened repeatedly growing up. This leads us to hypervigilance, which means you are constantly scanning for threats, trying to anticipate problems in order to feel more control and safety over your environment. And so when someone is in a mood, you immediately sense some sort of danger, and then your brain goes into overdrive trying to figure out how to fix it, right? And perhaps how to even take some responsibility for it so then you can control it. When, in fact, someone else's mood it's just that. It's someone else's mood. We don't know what's happening in their brain, what worry they're having inside, maybe what fight they had before you came over. There's probably many reasons why they were off. And so important to remind yourself, okay, just because they are off, it doesn't mean that I am responsible. And also it's important to point out that trauma distorts your sense of responsibility. It makes you believe that you have to be the one to take care of and regulate everybody else's emotions and that their happiness depends on you. And when you grow up that way, right, you feel like, okay, I can be the conduit to which my parent feels happy. Or in the same way, I can be the one in which they feel sad. If I do something that upsets them, it's my fault. If I break the rule, it's my fault. If I don't show up for them in the way that they expect and want me to, then their mood is my fault. And when they have a mood, when they're in a mood, I don't feel safe. So you absorb it as your own. Something also really important to note when it comes to why do I attribute someone else's mood as my fault? When your relational traumas happen, when you are at an early developmental age, especially between the ages of 2 and 7, that is the age range where the concept of magical thinking is at play. So developmentally, you attribute you towards the things outside of you happening. Like it's like a 2-year-old can think, right? If something that happens all the time with my son, we play this game where if he pushes his hand out, that's what makes the garage open and close. He really thinks, oh, me doing that means that the garage can open and close. I did that, when obviously we are pushing the button behind the scenes. You attribute that to all the different things happening around you. It's why let's say when a children's parents are getting divorced in that age range, one of the most important things you say to them is, it's not your fault. When I worked at a hospital for many years and perhaps a parent got a significant diagnosis or the child got a significant diagnosis in that age range, one of the things that you do first and foremost is remind them, this is not your fault. What happened here is not your fault. You need that verbal reminder to let you know, right? To help you encode that, oh, okay, this big thing happening around me, it's not because I did something to make it happen. What is so hard and heartbreaking is that thinking of all the big things that happen, all the big and actually all the little things that happen when you're growing up and you experience these relational traumas happening again and again. Developmentally, your brain is taking that in as, oh, if this is happening and this doesn't feel good, or I feel scared, or I feel worried, this is my fault that it's happening, which then leads us to develop these coping mechanisms to make us feel in control and feel like, okay, if I can do something about it, if only I do this, then maybe it'll feel better. So I say all of this just to help normalize and alleviate that when you notice that feeling come up of, oh my gosh, they're in this mood, what do I do? Let yourself take a breath and say, you know what? They are in this mood, period. I notice that they are in this mood. But it's not my fault, right? It's not my fault. Their feelings are their responsibility. And if they're mad at me, if they're upset with me, it's their job to let me know. It's not my job to figure it out for them. So I hope that's something that you can take with you the next time this happens. Does this sound like you? You know your childhood trauma has made things a lot more difficult for you today. You struggle to regulate your emotions. You often feel anxious or depressed. Relationships can be such a challenge. You may experience patterns of conflict or have difficulty forming close connections. You are so over feeling stuck, lonely, and critical inside. You know it's time to implement healthier coping mechanisms and practices to create more ease in your mind and your body. You are ready to land inside of a safe and supportive space to explore your experiences and heal. If this is you, then I want to introduce you to the Healing Practice, a gentle approach to childhood trauma recovery. The Healing Practice is my self-paced course for individuals who are ready to really take that brave first step into childhood trauma work. After taking this course, you will walk away with a deeper, more compassionate understanding of yourself and a structured healing practice that you will use to find grounded support in creating more ease, connection, and compassion in your daily life. If you are ready to take the leap into this course, I have a special referral code just for podcast listeners. Use code GOODGIRL, all one word, and receive 50% off. Now, I am no longer advertising the course for sale anywhere except for the podcast. Why does my kids needing me trigger me so much? This is a great question, and one that it's not the first time I've gotten this question. It is so understandable to be triggered by your children's needs and your children's attachment to you, especially when you have experienced insecure attachment or trauma in your own childhood. Now, here's why this happens. when your children are needing you, and it brings up this reaction, it actually shows us that needing a caregiver at all has become what we call a shadow part. Now, the things that annoy us in others tend to be the shadow parts that are hidden away or rejected inside of ourselves. My guess is that you may have learned to reject the needs that you had inside of you to be supported and attuned to and cared for by your own caregiver or caregivers. This tends to reawaken your inner child wounds. Right? It brings up those unresolved emotions and memories. And with that, it might bring up feelings of overwhelm, resentment, and especially the unmet needs that you had growing up. So it can be really hard and complicated to stand there and be present to meet the needs of your own kids while your own severely unmet needs get triggered. So that is why in that moment, your brain might be telling you, okay, I'm here to meet their needs, but your body, your nervous system is getting overwhelmed by the fact that you learned you likely were not allowed to have needs and to name those, and for you to trust that those would be met. So it's not so easy to be so fully present with your kids when those pieces are coming up. And of course, when that happens, you might be afraid to be repeating the patterns that you experienced. And so even again, if you're consciously striving to do things differently, your subconscious might make you feel really anxious and overwhelmed about, how do I get it right? How do I get this right when I was modeled something that did not work? If I was modeled dysregulation, reaction, anger, overwhelm, and that was what you were modeled in response to needs, it is so hard to teach and ground yourself and teach your nervous system to realize that you are safe. You are safe in your own body, you're safe with your own needs, and you're safe to meet the needs of your children. And so, of course, being able to work on, how do I regulate in those moments? Noticing when your body begins to feel overstimulated, overwhelmed, triggered, that you take a minute, right? Take a minute to use some embodied strategies, whether that's taking a deep breath, doing some nervous system regulation exercises like a butterfly hug, or humming. Humming is one of my favorites, and I recommend, if you are listening, wherever you are, after this, I want you to pause and just hum to yourself. And just notice how your body feels. And I want you to put your hand on your chest and really feel the vibration of your voice into your hand. It's really powerful. It's like a jolt of recharge and a reset for your body. So it's one of my go-tos. And so especially when you were not taught to set boundaries, it might be really hard for you to simultaneously feel like you can meet your own needs and your child's needs at the same time. And then when those come into conflict, when you are needing a minute to regulate, but their needs are so big and in front of you, it's almost like our brain can go offline. So I think it's really important to notice, how do those moments really play out? When they come to you and you begin to feel triggered, maybe you talk this through with them at a moment where you're feeling calm and grounded to say, whenever mom says, I need a timeout to go take some deep breaths, I'm going to take it, but know that I'm going to come right back to you. And the key is letting them know that you are coming back to them, because that is how you're repairing, right? That's how you're breaking the cycle. And also spending some time to really have compassion for the ways in which your needs weren't met, for the ways in which your parents were not the parent that you are to your kids. And there's a lot of grief there. I know we talk a lot about the grief of what it means to grieve everything that your inner child didn't get, but it's a really key step in the process to help you to feel more grounded and present when your kids' needs are in front of you. Our next question is how to deal with a parent daily that gave you childhood trauma and anxiety. Okay, this is a hard one, not easy. This is a really challenging situation, and it's going to be so important to prioritize yourself and your well-being. So, number one, I think it is really important to take the space to really understand, how have you been impacted by this parent? And I imagine that there have been ways in which you have had to hide parts of yourself, or to have your boundaries crossed in ways that you haven't felt good with. Maybe you feel like, I have to deal with you, but I might actually really want space. I think it's taking that time to listen deeply and understand, what do you really want? Because if you want some space, you're allowed to take it and to name it and to ask for it. And if this is a circumstance where you really cannot take literal space from this person every day for a whole various host of reasons, then I want you to think about, what are your boundaries? What do you feel comfortable enough doing? Like, I will have this phone call with you. I can talk for 5 minutes and then I have to go. It's the boundary is, what will you do? I can talk for 5 minutes, then I have to go. Maybe it's, you know what, I will stop in to say hello, but I have to leave after 10 minutes. Maybe it's, you know what, I cannot see you today. I will connect with you again this weekend. It's really figuring out, what is the boundary that you will do that actually makes you feel good? Because boundaries are meant to help us feel closer to someone, not make us, right, feel further away. Because the more that someone respects our boundaries, the more that they go along when you say, this is what I can do, and they don't protest, they don't, right, invalidate you, the more that they say, okay, then actually the more that you're going to build trust inside of that relationship. I would look deeply at, what are some of the things that you're not saying, that you're feeling and thinking? Because if anxiety is present, then, and especially a history of childhood trauma, I imagine you have an inner world experience that doesn't match the external experience that you have with this person, with this parent. I really would suggest taking your own space to really get clear with, what am I feeling? What am I not saying? What mask am I wearing? And let yourself figure out, is this a conversation I want to have, to be able to say, hey, I am sitting with these feelings. I need you to validate them. I need your accountability or apology. Or if there's someone that you're like, they're totally not going to listen, they're not going to, then we go back to boundaries, right? Then we go back to, okay, this is what I can do. And that is that, right? That is enough. And of course, there probably will be a part of you that says, oh gosh, if I don't do everything that they expect me to do, then I'm going to hear their anger, maybe their frustration, their sadness. And part of it too is actually saying, you know what, they are responsible for their feelings. This is the same message we get again and again. They are responsible for their feelings. It is not my job to take care of their feelings. I am setting my boundary. I am telling them, this is how I can connect in a way that feels safe to me. And if they feel differently, if they have an emotional response, that is theirs to take care of. It's not mine. It's theirs to take care of. It's not mine. Again, I know so much easier said than done, but I hope that is something that can be helpful. And if you have to see them, if you have to be around them, then it's figuring out, what are my boundaries when I'm with them? Is there a conversation that I want to have to talk about the dynamic, to process, to maybe bring some repair, healing? If that's possible, wonderful. If not, I'm really sorry. And I want to cheer you on and support you in setting those boundaries. And I hope that you have a supportive space, like a therapist or some sort of support system that can help you talk through and process these steps that you can take to really protect yourself. And those are our questions for this week. So thank you all so much for tuning in, for being here with me each week. And as a reminder, we are going to be releasing episodes now on Thursdays. So keep a lookout for next week's episode. We'll have another interview next week, and wishing you all a beautiful, rejuvenating, warm, cozy, connected weekend. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Good Girls Gotta Heal. I am so grateful to have you in this community. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. That helps us out greatly. And we'll see you next time.